Good morning, traders. Welcome to our pre-market analysis that we open up to the YouTube channel every single Wednesday. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown on what's going to happen this morning. Once I'm done speaking, this is Spartan, by the way. That's going to come on, give you a breakdown of the macro environment, any news events that are happening over the course of today or that have happened over the course of the evening. It makes sense to be looking at. Should go through any of the commodities, bigger picture items as well that are related to these things. And anything that she's looking at from that standpoint. Once that's done, I'm going to come back on. We'll talk about the individual names that I'm looking at that are gapping up, gapping down today. We'll go through the news associated with those names, the technicals, build a little bit of an action plan for those, as well as go through the SPY and the FANG and the VIX and probably the Qs if I have time as well. After that's done, South Beach will come on, give you a breakdown of the individual names that he's looking at today, analyst calls as well. And we'll do a quick little recap after that's done for the open and we'll be ready to go. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass over to Beth, guys, and I'll talk to you shortly. Beth, if you're ready, it's all yours.
It's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. Welcome. Pre-market here, Wednesday, SpartanTrading.com. We open it up to a live stream to those who are interested. Lots to talk about in terms of overall information. And we'll talk about some big ideas as well. We got the CPI number, obviously, but I just want to say I'm just getting a little bit tired of the business, but hey, you got to do what you got to do, right? Yesterday, Jolt, right? This is a huge problem in terms of wage pricing, all kinds of stuff. There's so many things that are coming into play that we don't know how it's going to end because we've never experienced this sort of thing, guys, right? We've never seen this sort of quantitative easing. We've never seen this sort of pandemic in 100+ years, right? The global economies, yada, yada, yada. So we're kind of making it up on the fly as we go along. Anybody who tells you they know what's going to happen there's a bridge I got right outside for you, okay? We'll just play it by ear, day by day. All right. We did have, which was really interesting, API crude draw. They actually got this almost exactly right. Never happens. This whole thing with Colonial is still a big deal. There's lines, there's panic buying on the East Coast. They got to get going with this thing, opening it up by the weekend. You know, if this goes into Memorial Day weekend, yeesh. All right. Okay. Let's take a look here. The leading economic index, things are really going well in Japan, guys. Keep an eye on that, right? Inflation, the Germans are the best of the best when it comes to nailing the forecast. It's remarkable always what they forecast. Think about that. Good news out about the UK today, guys. In terms of you know, some of these things in construction was way better year over year than expected. Balance of trade was better. The GDP was softer. Industrial production was better. So we're starting to see glimmers of hope. Like I said yesterday, thankfully, no deaths out of the Commonwealth in terms of the UK. I believe also Scotland. Anyways, that's wonderful news to hear on the vaccine in terms of the virus, et cetera, et cetera. EA, we've got some ECB heads talking today. Money supply in China. This is something, it's starting to shrink a little bit, guys. We got to keep an eye on that. The currency is starting to get a little bit bid. We have to keep an eye on that as well. China needs a strong currency in order for capital inflows. That's a given. And we're going to talk in terms of risk reward in terms of value versus growth, expensive growth. Okay, at what point, and this is what's really fascinating, at what point do some of these expensive growth stocks, if they're taking down 20, 30, 40%, and this is a theme, and this is what Spartan's brilliant at, is finding these gems for us where there is the potential in terms of the technical bounce. And that's where we are right now in this cycle, guys. It's all about technicals, all right? If you are not good at technicals, please take Spartan's class, okay? Follow what he says. He is the best technician there is out there, in my humble opinion. And there's a lot of people who agree with me on that one, okay? Industrial production out of the European area, a little bit worse than expected. And the industrial production month over month worse than expected. Okay, India inflation rate. And why I want to focus a little bit on inflation. This is why it's really hard, even when you're in a commodity super cycle, to maintain inflation rates. It's really hard. You'll see certain commodities spike. And last real super cycle we had was in based off of China, what they did in terms of the early 2000s, right? It's really hard. I mean, the one that we know the best in terms of super cycle would be in the 1970s, like the oil, yada, yada, yada. But we have to keep an eye on this. We do have some Fed heads. Once again, we had Fed heads yesterday. It's like what they keep saying is sustainability, okay? And they keep saying, well, we might see shocks on inflation. It's like they're preparing us, right? But is it sustainable, right? They don't think it is. They think it's going to come back. And we do have the 10-year note auction, Bostic, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, let's actually take a look here. This is a CPI index going back to the 1960s. Okay, and this gives you a real indication in terms of sustainability, in terms of commodity prices, right? It's really hard to keep it up for a sustainable point in time. And this is why the Fed heads keep saying the same thing. You're going to have a spike here, that's going to come down. Right? Now, this is, it's fascinating, right? This is not seasonally adjusted either, just so you know. This is the issue in a nutshell. Now, we saw here in terms of this was the oil spike, right? But for the most part, it is so hard. And this is where we're at. And, you know, this is normal. How do you get these prices in terms of reflection? So what's going to happen here? All of the consumer staples companies are saying they're going to raise prices in September. So they haven't basically passed on their cost of production. Okay. You're going to see in the fall these consumer price index starting to spike. That's what's going to happen. Until that time, you're going to see up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And what are you going to do with it? Okay. It's basically at what point do the manufacturers, producers, pass it on? We know that there's a chip shortage. We know that there's lumber. We know all this stuff. We know housing prices going up. At what point, do we start to see it where it trickles down to a wallet? Probably in the fall. Okay. All right. Insider transactions, PLG still selling. This is a 10% owner. Okay. Whatever. Camping World Holdings. This is interesting to me, guys. This came in late yesterday, the CEO. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on this. This is something that, this is one of those things that when it comes back down, you want to look to see, well, okay, right? Let's take a look here at our stock ratings. Me, I don't like to do all of them, but I like to see who's the top. Oh my, only one, Unity Software. Tom Roderick, Stifle. Okay. So with all of these Hain brands, all these ones that are coming up, AROI, this got a lot of sales, sell downgrades and stuff like that. Okay. Only one. And don't forget, I look at 20+%. So this is kind of cool. Let's see what happens with that. Right. Okay. Wall Street Journal. U.S. tariffs drop in Chinese imports. This is a good thing, right? So what this is telling us, right, is that U.S. companies are finding alternative sources aside from China based on tariffs to get their stuff done in terms of imports. So you see here apparel, furniture, telecom equipment, and then you have computer accessories. This is good. I really want to see this whole domestic tailwind in terms of manufacturing. The subsidies necessary. I don't care. Let's get it done here. Let's get these chip makers. They want to make it here. Give them what they need. Right? Okay. Wall Street. This is fascinating. They reported that basically the court rules in Amazon's favor. It's like EU. Hello, stop it. You're going outside the realm here. Let's take a look at what happened yesterday. 70-30. Started out a little bit rocky, but as you can see here, I want to bring to your attention two things. I have never seen this amount of stocks. So this is the short inverse ETF for the semiconductors, right? I haven't seen anything like this. Notable June, mid-June, and I keep telling you, seasonality doesn't start in terms of there's only one AVGO that starts to have strong seasonality until the end of June. NVIDIA starts to kick in, Taiwan Semi starts to kick in. And if you can see here, this is representational. You can see that 2,632% times average volume. This XOM is a big deal as well. I kept saying XOM, 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 something's, and the triple Ds. Those are the three that caught my attention yesterday. But let's take a peek here. You don't see it here, but I'll show you. Do I have it? Yeah, here we go. You can see here, XOM was the multiple prints. My text kept popping, binging for all of these XOM bullish calls. And there were some bearish calls as well, but it was a lot of money that went through yesterday on the option side on XOM. LMND bullish puts, oops, okay. Uber bearish calls, okay. Apple bullish puts, okie dokie. All right, yesterday, better than expected, right? Energy, I continue to maintain this, guys. For me, with these commodity super cycles, steel, energy, I don't care. If I see the flows coming in, it's BTFD. This is years, not days, not weeks, not months, but multiple years. I'm thinking 5 to 6 years. I keep saying this, I know this, but if you're a day trader, obviously that's something different. But for me, like the SLX, making 650+%, okay, and looking to buy lower, that's what I want, okay? And that's what sets us up with these commodity super cycles, all right? All right, for Elliott Wave peeps, this is the SPX hourly. The question is going to be right here. This is his pivot. 4096 breaks below that. Then he thinks we go back to Alt A, which obviously is lower, which is like below around 4,000. Okay, and you can see the fibs and stuff like that. If it holds up, then we're going up to up to here. Because this is a short-term time frame, Spartan rules on this one. But I'm just showing you the count for those of you who are interested. All right, Qs. After 1.5% gap down, but it closed within minus 2. Okay, at 1 month low, yada, yada, yada. It's bearish. Okay, there you go. 6 months out, a year out. Okay. Yeah. So just saying. But it's not, this is probably this is 73%. So it's statistically, I need 80+% for me to get, it's enough to cause get my attention. But don't forget, when did this last happen? That's close to the highs of the .com bubble. Just saying. Okay. Smart money, dumb money coming in. That's what it should do. But, and they actually got this right in terms of thinking the market was going to roll over. But we'll take a look at the heat map to see how that goes on. S&P new high percentages, 1 year out, it's bullish, short-term bearish. 3-6, 1 year out, bullish. See, 80%. That's what I want to see. Okay. But I still say if the Fed gets it right, in terms of their lightening up on the quantitative easing, if it's the Goldilocks and they do a great job, I don't see how this market can sell off sustainably. I mean, I know we talk about value versus growth, but okay, fine, that's rotation, but there's opportunities in so many things. This is the heat map I was telling you. This is still a good heat map for us, right? Excuse me. We still see, corn, lumber. This is going to be up there for, like I said, forever and a day. CRB, yada, yada. A lot of this nice color here. So we don't have anything in the single digits, which I kind of bummed about. I actually might want to see, what I want to see actually is a pullback, but we don't take out yesterday's low, make a higher low, then we start to bounce. That would be kind of like Nirvana. Yesterday, flows. XLI had the most flows out, not a lot, but you can see here money coming into the Qs. Duh, right? We saw that. Monthly, this is last month, okay? US equity, all sectors, energy, yada, yada, yada. But where did it go? Fixed income, investment grade. So this tells me, yeah, there's money on the sideline, guys. That's what it tells me. All right, let's take a peek here. 10-year, Cyrus, like I said, I think we're in the range. Top end is 177, low went, well, 147. And we're in the mid. Next. And you can see here, we do have a little bit of a triangle, right? We got this double bottom. We'll see how it plays out. I just don't see, and as you can see here, we keep sitting. This is the month before and the prior month, right? So basically the 50 EMA on the monthly, it bounced off of. If it breaks, yeah, okay, we can get back, we can get down to here, 128.045. Okay? All right, global, let's see. US, right? Yields are down slightly. Canada yields are up slightly. Europe yields are down. Asia Pacific yields are down. All right, let's take a look here. The commodity side, gold is down slightly. We got a bounce in the oil. We know that, yada, yada, yada. Aluminum, zinc, nickel, copper down a little bit. Rough rice, corn, soybeans, cotton, cocoa, coffee, sugar, yeah. Lumber, keep an eye on that one. And we are going to talk about lumber today. Currencies, okay. Dollar index, broke this uptrend line on a monthly. Yeah, but I mean, on a weakening side, this helps my narrative, right? Where money's going to flow overseas, right? But anyways, I don't see a big range in this either. I think, and this is where it becomes risk reward. And this is what I want to impress upon you, okay? When you have a move like this, so initially the move was, potential move, right, is down to here, if you look within the range, right? So that was 4.5%. So as you get closer and closer to here, so on a risk reward basis, the downside potential is 0.87%, whereas the upside, right, potentially is 3.9. And I think this is how you have to look at a lot of these names, guys, all right? Okay, what had happened yesterday? FANG basically bounced robustly off this weekly uptrend line that goes back to last year. Okay, and you can see it right here, right? August of last year. And it's starting to reclaim this extension. It would be like absolutely positively super cool, right? If it reclaimed this extension on the weekly. That would be like huge, right? Because basically we have one of these funky candles. We're going to be back inside the triangle. Oh my goodness gracious. That's all I'm saying. I got to do it. I know. I got to do it. All right, let's take a peek here. What happened yesterday? Guys, it bounced off the 50% fib, and it's was extended outside the Bollinger, and it basically is trying to reclaim the 50 EMA on the weekly. Now, you look at this, okay, but let's see what happened on the daily, the volume. This is what happened on the daily. Buyers came in, right? Now, the question is this meaningful? No. I just thought I'd tell you that. I'm just saying it's not. It was a one-time bounce on the daily and then it sold off. So, hey, just because it bounced doesn't mean we're done on the downside. With this sort of thing, it's hard to figure out. But the thing that has my attention, obviously, is this right here. As long, we have to reclaim this pivot. Okay, and that's March's low. We'll see what happens. All right, let's get to business. China, Yuan. Let's talk about the Chinese market. Sideways consolidation. I think we're going to start the next leg down, which would be a tailwind for the Chinese market. They need something, right? Shanghai, actually, believe it or not, look at this on the monthly. This is holding up since 2019. Crazy, right? But it is. Right? And I wouldn't be surprised, guys, if there's a little bit of help going on there. Look, everybody's got every country has the version of the PPT, plunge protection team. Okay, in terms of assisting the liquidity in the market. Don't think otherwise, all right? Okay, K-Web, internet taken to the woodshed. Almost got all the way down here to the 100 EMA on the weekly. Bouncing, trying to reclaim the 50% fib. Let's be honest, it's BABA, 10 cent. We'll see how this plays out. JD, yada, yada, yada. Oh, I forgot JD, CQQQ. I rolled the puts, guys. They were in the money, so I rolled down. Where would I get out of it? I'm not, now we're starting earnings seasons for the Chinese names, and it's like, I'm not exactly sure that I'm going to get out of it. I just still have some FXI puts on as well for next week, and we'll see how that plays out too. All right, here's FXI, bounced exactly off the 50% fib, right? We claim the 20 EMA on the monthly, trying to reclaim this pivot. Let's see what happens here, right? I think we're going to be pinned, though, to be honest with you. We'll see it with the earnings cycle and stuff like that. EEM, this is basically BABA, 10 cent, and Taiwan Semi. A2 bounced off of the monthly extension. And this is why, guys, it's really helpful when you look at longer dated charts, because the dailies may say, oh my God. But if you look in terms of weekly, monthly, it says, okay, whatever. It's just basically coming back in, holding the extension, and off it goes. No damage has been done. Now, BABA, well, damage has been done. But, okay, it continues to hold this level right here, right? And you can see BABA's, down quite a bit from its high, right? If you look in terms of its actual high, BABA is down 33%, right? Okay, so what do we got going on here? What I think is happening is we're forming a long-term multi-month base, okay? And then we're going to see some sort of catalyst, and it could be earnings, I don't know. Something's going to happen, they're going to make kiss and make up, something with the, some news is going to come out, and basically investors are going to say, okay, well, all right, I'll start to nibble again, right? And BABA would be the cheapest, right? Least expensive, I should say, of the Chinese names, right? Except for the EVs and stuff like that. XPEV, stuff like that. Okay, so here's 10 cent. Obviously, it's holding up much better, only down to as you can see here, 38% the fib, right? Bounced off of this actually pivot off a previous double top, monthly, notable, okay? Work to be done, but at least it's holding where it needs to hold. PDD, sideways consolidation narrative. This is really kind of interesting what's going on here. I'm going to defer to Spartan on this one. This is a tough one for me in terms of valuation. But as you can see here on the weekly, it's trying to hold this range within this box. It did pierce it, but it reclaimed it. So it's going to be fascinating next couple of weeks. Bido, we start to see money coming in. It bounced right off of this low from March, notable. What do I want to see? This is a weekly. I want to see it break this downtrend line. Let's see if we can do it with earnings coming in, okay? And as you can see here, basically, this is the 50 EMA on the weekly. It's trying to reclaim. Lots of sweeps came in. That's why I bought some. Neo wasn't taken to the woodshed like some of the others, the XPEB. Sideways consolidation narrative. This is the weekly, multiple months. Okay, work to be done. I know Spartan will shout this on. I have this weekly downtrend line, right? So let's see if it can do that. And then once that happens, okay, basically, we have to see if it can start to reclaim. This is the 20 EMA on the weekly. Let's take a look at XPEB. This is the one that was taken to the woodshed, right? Okay, we're getting there. Spartan will shout it out when he feels it's ready. But as you can see here, this is the weekly. It is holding this down the bottom end of the box. So like I say, a lot of these guys that have come down 20, 30, 40%, they were expensive. Now are they value? Right? My time is up. Once again, welcome to those of you who are joining us pre-market here, SpartanTrading.com. It's time for me to pass it on. Are you ready, sir?
I just need 1 minute here, Beth.
Okie dokie. All right, let's take a look at the SMH. The reason why we're looking at the SMH is because of all those SOX sweeps that came in on the call side, negative. It actually held right now, guys. So my pivot right now, to be honest with you, initially is right here, this 228.97 on the downside. We did get that low, obviously yesterday, but beyond that, I got a lot of channel support coming in, and 221.69 should be the low end. And if it does go a little bit beyond that, 216, I don't think that happens though, okay? Let's take a look at lumber. We're finally getting a pullback in lumber on the extension. It has to come back within the Bollinger. This is the monthly, guys. So we do have a pullback coming in, 13.95 for those of you who are interested in that commodity. So in terms of the impact on some of these ETFs on the lumber side, just be aware of that, okay? Other one, this is the steel. Double top, I think it's going to break out here. There's so much room for this thing. It's still riding along. This is the monthly, this lovely Bollinger. Let's see how that plays out, okay? And then SLX, this is the steel one that we've been nailing. I did start to nibble on the pullback that we saw a little bit on some of this stuff. So we'll see how that plays out. It wasn't much of a pullback, but you can see here yesterday, it basically pulled back, okay, into the 78.6% fib. So that's why I started to buy a little bit more. I'll post that. If they did start to add more strikes, and I'll post that for the room. I know a lot of you like to follow me on that trade. Crude. This thing is still consolidating, guys. This is a flag that we got going on in the monthly, okay? I was disappointed that we did not pop the top, but if we do pop this top, guys, we got the next leg coming in, and it's going to be robust. Just a saying, all right? Basically, I would expect it to get back into the mid 70s, mid to upper 70s. Okay, just so you're aware of that. Quickly, before my time is up, let's take a look at the VXN. This has been a fantastic chart for us. It tells us what's going on. We're getting a pullback. So basically, this is still the pivot, guys. All right, this 25.50. All right, as long as it's above it, the risk is still potentially for a pull. This is the NASDAQ, right? Volatility, right? So until we actually break below this pivot, the risk is still potentially for more selling going on the NASDAQ side. So that's my level that I'm interested in right there, okay? And if we do get a sustainable bounce, this should actually come all the way back down here, guys, okay? So 2036 is what I'm looking at. Right. So that's just a great indication for you. On the VIX, in terms of the longer, bigger time frame on that, you can see here, same narrative, right? We're kind of still within this range, right? And this is what happens, right? It's really hard. It has to be an event that gets us to really break out. We haven't had that kind of event. So we're still within, this is a monthly, right? So, we see here, we got support down here, and basically this is the 20 EMA on the monthly, 2441. Like I say, I can't even imagine what would be the catalyst for this to skyrocket, and it would have to be something macro external in order for this to really happen, or maybe a limit down sort of thing. I mean, I don't see that happening anytime soon, but you get the idea. That's why it's so hard. Spartan's brilliant with it on the shorter time frame, looking at the VIX. But this is in terms of the bigger picture, right? Really nothing going on, except basically we're bouncing to the upper end of the range. Okay, so that's the VIX, and that's where we are on that. Let's take a look quickly at Ethereum. I know a lot of you have followed me on this trade in terms of outperforming Bitcoin, that spread, dynamite. I'm looking for basically 52,227. It is extended, no question about it. I actually would like to see Cyrus consolidate for a couple weeks so that the Bollinger can catch up, right? And then start to go up again. But I mean, this is a long-term swing for me anyway, so who cares, right? I mean, this, I see actually Ethereum getting to the same levels as Bitcoin, right? 55,000, something like that. If Bitcoin's going to 250,000, then I'm telling you, Ethereum's going to, you can actually calculate it just by looking at the Bitcoin Ethereum spread. Okay. So if you basically take, right, what the spread is right now, and you basically take the Bitcoin at 250,000, right? You divide it by the spread. That tells you where the Ethereum can get to. Kind of cool, right? We are into support. Like I say, it is extended, so that means.
All right, Beth, I'm ready to come on whenever. All right, guys, what's going on? So market's coming in a little bit here. Let me just pop up the screen share. There we go. All right, let's take a quick look at what we got going on today. A couple different things. I will be posting the instructions for the Discord link, guys. If you are new to chat, it is emailed to you, so just simply check that. But obviously, we can see the SPY QQQ is dipping right now. Just quickly want to mention that. Pre-market tickers on watch, a couple different things that we're looking at today. The Tesla, TTD, UPST, LMND, FUBO, and ARRY. So Tesla gapping down slightly in sympathy with the market. TTD gapping down slightly in sympathy with the market as well. Well, no, a little bit more. UPSD earnings beat EPS and revs. Q2 guidance earnings and rev raised. 2021 guidance raised. Stocks gapping up. LMND earnings mixed. EPS miss. Rev beat. Q2 guidance in line. Same with 2021 guidance and stocks gapping down. FUBO earnings mixed. EPS miss and rev beat. Year-over-year growth 1,541%. And Q2 guidance raised. 2021 guidance raised. So not bad earnings. Stocks gapping up. Then ARRY reported worse than expected Q1 EPS. Also reported it's unable to guide fiscal 2021. Stocks gapping down on that. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint. Intraday, the first two that we'll be looking at today will be Tesla and TTD. Let's have a look. So Tesla, TTD, let's see. Tesla stock is obviously gapping down a little bit here. Let's just see where it's got room to. Pretty much the same levels as yesterday. I'm just going to flip the pivot over. We'll take a quick look at the daily as well. So was extended to the downside yesterday on the daily, still is. Range support. Let's actually label this. $592. Oh, I can see that level. Okay. Needs to come down a little bit more. All right, so pivot to the downside today on Tesla is going to be 606.31. This level is unable to hold. We do have room towards the 592 to 585.44. That level breaks 566.85 will be tested. Able to hold, look for a pushback to 619.30 to 631.26 on the upside. Overall on Tesla, going to be leaning on the bearish side today. Looking for continuation lower. TTD, let's take a look at this. So obviously stock's still extended to the downside. Let's see where we got room to today. I don't think I need to go all the way down here, but all right, let's take a look at this thing intraday. So quite the range on TTD again. 502.39 pivot. This level is able to hold. We got room towards 520.04 to the 541.69 level. Unable to hold 480, 228 to 456 is where we'll have room to. Going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side of TTD today. So I think it's quite extended to the downside. I'll be looking for a hold of the pivot. The pivot can stay intact. I do think it can bounce a little bit more to the upside to that 540 area today. So that's what I'll be looking for. Take a screenshot of these two things. Let's take a look at the next. It's like market held that bounce. Nice to see. That's Tesla. That's TTD. Oops. Let's take a look at the next two, which are UPST and LMND. Let's take a quick look at that daily on UPST. All righty. So 1112.80. Where do we got room to today? This name always has quite a bit of range intraday. That's supposed to be up here. That should be right there. We can delete the 104.77. Okay. All right, 106.04 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold towards 116.86 to 123.79. Unable to hold, look for a pullback towards 99.11 to the 92.99 level on the downside. Overall on UPST, going to be looking for bullish continuation today. As long as that pivot can stay intact, I think we can get a continued push to the upside. Earnings were solid. Chart looks good on the daily. Reclaimed all EMA support, downtrend broken. I think we can get some continuation there. All right, let's take a look at LMND. It's an interesting chart. This range tested the downside on the daily. 66.31 is the pivot. This level is unable to hold. We got room towards 62.01. That level breaks 58.49 will be tested. Able to hold, we look for a pushback to 72.84 to 77.19 on the upside. Overall on LMND, going to be leaning on the bearish side today, looking for continuation lower. If that pivot's unable to hold, I think we can get continuation. So that's what I'll be watching for this morning. That's UPST, that's LMND. Let's take a look at the next two. So Fubo and Airy. All right, earnings mixed, EPS miss, rev beat, gapping up. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. It's at about 21.20 right now. Did reclaim short-term EMA support. I'll label the 50 EMA as well. Label that support level, resistance. There we go. Might go one above. Alrighty, so the pivot to the upside today will be this 21.62 spot. Levels able to hold. They got room towards 22.57 to 23.91. Unable to hold. Look for a pullback to 20.47 support. That level breaks 18.78 will be tested on the downside. Overall on Fubo, we'll be leaning on the bullish neutral side today. As long as it can hold above the pivot, I think we can push back towards that 50 MA test on the daily, and I'm looking to see if whether or not we can break through that area of resistance. It's going to be a big level, though. That's for sure. Let's take a look at Airy. Let's get rid of this. Let's actually reload that. There we go. So ARRY gapping down. I think we are at all-time lows, I believe. $14.47. All right, 1708 pivot to the downside today. Level breaks. You got room towards the 1438 spot. Unable to be reclaimed. Look for a pushback to 1971 to 2242 on the upside. Overall on this name going to be leaning bearish out the gate, looking for a pull. And then I think you get it kind of a blow off to the downside, and maybe we get a little bit of a bounce after that. So that's what I'll be looking for there. So that is Fubo. That is Airy. All right, let's take a look at the next couple names here, which are going to be the SPY and the FANG. I think we get rid of this. No, we'll keep the channel, I guess. Good thing to be aware of. All right, pivot to the downside today is going to be 412.62. Levels unable to hold towards 411.69 to 410.19. That level breaks 409.25 to 408.35 will be tested. Able to hold, we look for a pushback on the SPY into the 413.56 to the 414.15 level. That level breaks 415 will be tested on the upside. Overall on the SPY today, going to be leaning bearish, neutral. Looking for a pull out the gate. I do think we can bounce back off of that range support level. We'll see what happens. But, right now, obviously, we're below that bottom channel to the downside as well as the pivot. So we'll be leaning bearish until those levels are reclaimed. So that's the SPY. Let's take a look at Apple. Apple 123.61 pivot, levels unable to hold, moving towards 122.63 to 121.49. Able to hold 124.97 to 127.02 will be tested on the downside. Overall on Apple, going to be leaning more on the bullish neutral side today, looking for a hold of the pivot and a continuation grind back to the upside. Still extended on the daily. I think it could be, this could be more of an inside type day on the some of these FANG names where they kind of consolidate to the downside, looks like. So that's what Apple is showing us on the daily at least. Amazon, let's take a look. So Amazon did fill the gap yesterday. 32.07 is going to be the pivot to the downside today. This level is unable to hold. We got room towards 31.72, 66 to 31.38. Able to hold. Look for a pushback to 32.49 to the 32.88 spot on the downside or on the upside. Overall on Amazon, going to be leaning bearish. Looking for continuation lower. So that is Amazon. $45.64 pivot on Netflix to the downside today. This level is unable to hold. We got room towards 476.78. That level breaks. We can see 468.64 tested. Able to hold. Look for pushback to 492.82 to 499.18 on the upside. Overall on Netflix, going to be leaning on the more of the bearish neutral side today as well. Looking for continuation lower if that pivot breaks. So we'll have to watch and see what happens there. Let's take a screenshot of that. Let's move on to Facebook. Facebook pivot to the downside today, guys, is going to be the 303.76 spot. We're still below that channel. To the downside, this level is unable to hold. We got room towards 299.83. That level breaks, 297.30 will be tested. Able to hold, we look for a pushback on Facebook towards 307.09, possibly 310s on the upside. Overall on Facebook, leaning bearish, looking for a continuation lower as it's still below that bottom channel to the downside, which is quite bearish. Let's take a look at Google. Google pivot, 22.48, unable to hold towards 22.28, able to hold 22.63 to 22.71 will be tested. Overall on Google, going to be leaning bearish neutral on that name to the downside. All right, let's take a look at let's take a look at the VIX real quick before I pass it along. So VIX clearly holding the 50 MA on the daily and the extension to the upside. 23.10 is going to be our pivot. This level holds. We got room towards 24.26 to 25.23. Unable to hold. We look for a pullback into the 21.86 to 20.79 on the downside. We'll have to keep an eye on the VIX pivot, guys, for direction on the SPY. Obviously, if we continue to push up, you can expect an increase in volatility as well as probably bearish action on the market. It is notable that there was a little bit of a divergence between the SPY and the VIX yesterday where they were both moving to the upside together. So keep that in mind. Alrighty. So that's the SPY, that's the FANG. Those are the individual names that we're looking at today, guys. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to South Beach, and I'll talk to you guys shortly. South Beach, if you're ready, it's all yours.
Guys, okay, hump day. Let's see what we got going on. Okay, we got volatility, that's for sure. We like that. All right, let's look at the bonds. All right, so the 10-year is 1.65, up 0.03. Quite frankly, I would have thought it'd be up a little more, to be honest. So we've still in this range that we've been in, okay, with a low of about 150, high of 174, 175. So it was kind of sort of still in the middle. But I wouldn't be surprised if we broke out with higher rates. Okay, looking at Britain, their 10-year is 0.84. That's up 0.01. Germany, I'm still saying July 4th for a plus number. They're up 0.01 and minus 0.14. So still negative rates over in Germany. France's rates are basically zero. Everybody's basically zero. Well, most people are anyway. Europe, Japan 0.07, basically zero. You get the drift. Okay, still equities provide the best game in town, but you can also lose money there, right? So let's see what else we got. Let's look at commodities today. Oil's up 1.5%. So that might be a place to look on the long side, right? Copper unchanged, 4.76. It was up a little earlier, now it's flat. Gold is basically flat, silver's basically flat as well, okay? So that's the commodity. So the one commodity doing well today is oil. All right, let's look at the currencies. So the dollar is mixed against North America. It's up against, I would think the dollar would start to gain a little strength here. Anybody know why? China, the US dollar is up a little bit against them, and it's basically flat against the euro. Okay. Crypto, no one knows. All right. Bitcoin is down 0.6%, so basically flat for that. And Coinbase is up, Ethereum is up about 5%. I'm long both. More Ethereum. I like Ethereum better, which I've been saying to you guys. Bonds we discussed. Let's look at the foreign markets. They were up a bunch earlier, not a bunch, but up. FTSE's up 45. DAX is up 11, which is basically unchanged. So basically unchanged on both. FTSE's up 0.6. DAX is unchanged. Nikkei is down 1.6. China's up about 0.5%. Hong Kong's up 0.7. Okay, so that's that. All right, no news out of China. Gold, we know. The virus, there's really nothing to say, right? every country is going to get a little better over time, it seems to me. The U.S. and a few other countries are leading the march as far as getting people vaccinated. And I don't know where I'm at, where I live, Miami. No one wears masks. It's basically non-existent. People don't even talk about it, think about it, and I don't know anybody that's had COVID forever. So that's what's going on here. Okay, so we had this big inflation number, right? What we get? We got 4.2 versus 3.6 on CPI, and core 3.0 versus 2.3. Anybody know the difference between the two? No one knew why I expected the dollar to go high. Does anybody know the difference between the two CPIs? Seems not. Okay, well, the difference is core doesn't include food and energy, so it's kind of sort of fugazi, right? The one you got to look at, in my opinion, is CPI, right? 4.2. That is a big move. It's the biggest move since 2008, month over month. Okay, so I'll answer the other question also. Why do I expect the dollar to be stronger? I expect the dollar to be stronger because the Fed is going to become less accommodative. Okay, they'll probably have to do something sooner when we raise rates or we take stuff away. The dollar gets strong. That's the way it works. Okay, all right, so that's that. What else do we have going on today? So we had, that's a big thing. The CPI numbers are pretty big deal. All right. When you see numbers like this, guys, you have to ask yourself, how does this affect the stock market? How does it affect individual stocks? And you have to, you have to think about the ramifications of stuff, right? So if interest rates are going up, right, since the average American borrows a fair amount of money, right? What does that do? Right? What does that do? It reduces their purchasing power, right? So if it reduces their purchasing power, which groups would get hurt the most when they reduce purchasing power? Okay. I mean, the fact that inflation has gone through the roof, you shouldn't be surprised. You see housing prices in your town through the roof, right? We talk about the commodities every morning. You see stock prices basically ripping your face off on the upside up until 2 weeks ago. So this inflation, I mean, to not see it, you have to be completely blind, right? Stanley Druckenmiller talked about it yesterday. You had Tom Pettifree, who's a very smart guy, talking about it this morning. He thinks it's going higher. This is something you got to pay attention to, okay? But how does it affect an individual stock and which groups and whatnot? That's what you got to take into consideration. Like, I have a position in Teva. Is inflation going to hurt Teva? No. Inflation has nothing to do with Teva. Okay. Is inflation going to hurt big pharma? No, it's not. Is inflation going to hurt retail? You betcha. Okay. You have to ask yourself which groups get affected. You have an action, then there's a cause and effect. Okay. We have to look at the effect. All right. So what groups will this affect? Higher rates. What group does it affect? Well, banks, they like a steepening yield curve. They're in the business of borrowing short and lending long. Plays right into their wheelhouse if the rates go up, right? So you got to think of the tech stocks. They borrow a lot of money. The cost to borrow is going to go up. Is it good for them? No. Okay. So that's how, just don't, unilaterally make crazy decisions because your hair's on fire. Step back, think about things. How will things get affected? Which groups will get affected? And which of your investments will get affected? I mean, the fact that interest rates are going to go up, and it's probably you're probably better off in equities than almost anything else, even though they're going down. So it's the best house on Ugly Street. You know what I mean? So keep it in mind. Ask yourself these questions all the time. It's not just trading, because setup. You invest also. So when you think about things, or which groups to focus on, this is really important stuff. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. So you had a bunch of numbers today. You saw the guys that did well: UPST, Fubo, Wendy's did well. Letter U had a good number. Diageo had a good number. And on the negative side, you had this ARRY. QS was kind of crappy. By the way, my oscillator is at a -39. So there's plenty of room on the downside. Okay. 0.39 doesn't, you can't play a bottom at 0.39. You can play a bottom at 0.79, maybe, but 0.39, no. Okay. What else is here? I'll talk about SPACs tomorrow. They were talking about it on CNBC. But let's visit that tomorrow. Okay. Unless we have time later, I'll go back to it. Okay. All right. What are you saying? China wants to use the U.S. cash for spending. Okay. All right. So let's look at research. Okay. Research on days like today, not so much. You'll see which groups rotate in. But with the greater volatility, guys, there's a lot of opportunities. And, your preconceived notion about what the market's going to do, all bets are off when you see the action. Like, would have I expected that I would be long high PE tech yesterday? No. But that's what set up. You know what I mean? So I came in not of that opinion, but when I saw the market, flip-flop, I moved into that sector. Let's briefly talk about Mr. Market for yesterday. I forgot to talk about that. Okay. So, excuse me. Yesterday we had high PE tech did very well, right? Materials did well. China did well. EV and solar. The exact opposite from the previous 2 days. Okay. So this rotation, you got to pay attention to it. All right. You can trade the individual names that have a lot of action, or you can trade, the group rotation, or you can do both. Okay. It's whatever works for you. No one's going to be like me. No one's going to be like Spartan. I'm not going to be like Spartan. We all have our own style. You have to develop it over time. And, whatever makes sense to you, the way you see the market, the way it sets up, you'll find your place as far as, if you haven't already, most of you have, what works for you. Okay. But it was the exact opposite of yesterday. And on the negative side, you had bank stocks, big oil and E&P. Insurance was kind of soft. You had drugs soft, machinery, cyclicals, home builders, retail. So that was where the softness was. Okay. So a complete, 360 from what we've been seeing. Okay. So we'll see what happens today, but that's that. Futures are holding up pretty well, in my opinion, by the way. All right. Now let's move into research. Okay. What do we have? On the short side, NVAX was downgraded to neutral by JP Morgan. Basically, the problem these guys are having is their production facility is not up to snuff, according to the research out of JP Morgan. So, I mean, you can produce a vaccine, come up with it in the lab. If you can't roll it out to provide, millions of vaccinations, then what good is it, right? So that was downgraded and the stock's soft because of that. Maybe they'll get out of this mess. Maybe they won't, who knows? ROK reiterate the sell there, raise the target. That's JP Morgan raises the target to 205, stock's 268. So the guy's been wrong in the name. I don't like to pay attention to analysts that have been wrong. Okay. So I'm not going to pay attention to it. Palantir got down, a bunch of guys don't like it. JP Morgan has a sell on it with a 17 target. Morgan Stanley has a sell on it with a 19 target. And then you have Goldman, who likes it, with a 30 target. This stock is a battleground stock. Me personally, I don't like to mess with battleground stocks. Okay. I like to find the, 80-pound weakling on the beach and kick the crap out of him. I don't like to fight Muhammad Ali. So I think Palantir is too tough. And I'll let someone else fight that fight. I'll trade it during the day like the rest of you. I was in it yesterday. but I don't want to go home with it. I don't want to know from it. It's too much of a battleground stock in my book. Okay. So what else was going on? DG was downgraded, not a hard downgrade. That's Dollar General. Ameren was downgraded, not significant. The big downgrade on the day was this ARRY. Okay. They had some problems with their earnings. They had some problems with the drug, et cetera, et cetera. That's probably the dog of the day, right? Okay, so let's move to the long side. The most significant call on the long side is Susquehanna thinks JCOM is going to double from here. Okay. What do I think of Susquehanna Research? I don't know. It's a second tier firm. Their research, I don't know this analyst, but when someone has a target of 250, stock's 122, it's significant. They were on Kramer's show last night, and they had a bunch of guys on last night, like 4 different firms. And for some reason, I didn't pay attention to JCOM because it didn't interest me, but I may go back and listen to what the guy said. The big call out of Kramer last night, they had the CEO of Roblox in, and Kramer couldn't contain himself. He was so high on this company. Okay. What else on the long side? HBI was upgraded by Stifel. Target hold to buy. Target goes from 18 to 25. Stock's 19. Vertical Research. I'm not that familiar with these guys. They raised TransDigm, TDG. I am familiar with TransDigm. It's a fantastic company. You see a lot of this. You see a lot of reiterate buys and reduce targets. That's what's going on. I'm not saying Kramer's right. I'm just saying what he said. But I think he is a pretty good stock picker. Better than most. And you try picking a stock every day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year. It is hard. Okay? It is really hard. DraftKings. This is what you see basically everybody's research. Reiterate the buy, reduce the target from 98 to 77, stocks 44. A lot of reiterate the buys and reduce the target. So I like to look for reiterate the buys and raise the target, like CVS at Mizuho. Reiterate the buy, raise the target from 82 to 98, stocks 84. Okay, that's what you're kind of looking for. DGX, same broker. Target 149 to 158. So you're looking for target raises, okay? LH 267 to 310. Again, Mizuho. All right, not the I like the stock and I'm lowering the target. NLOK, what is that? Norton LifeLock or whatever it's called. Sell to buy at Bank America. Target 30. I think they reported earnings yesterday. Target's 30. Stock's 23. Acted very well. What else? LB, they're spinning off Victoria's Secret because they couldn't get enough dough for it, so they're just going to spin it off. Deutsche Bank likes the name, raised the target to 87 from 80 and stock 67. Remember, the number one analyst over at JP Morgan, those are his 3 babies, LB, American Eagle, and Gap Stores. Okay, so, when you see names like that, you got to think, okay, retail looks good. These 3, I think retail will probably be soft today, but we'll see. Okay. This was interesting. JP Morgan talked about 4 compelling medtech names. Okay. I hadn't realized that medtech got as creamed as it did. I don't really follow this group. So the stocks they think are compelling buys in the downdraft. Or DXCM, I can write them. I don't know if you guys really can hear when I do letters, because sometimes it's hard. DXCM was 1. Look at that chart, guys. I can't read my own writing. I think it's this, INSP, is that right? INSP is right. I'm just not that familiar with this group. POD is another. These stocks have really gotten absolutely obliterated. And this is the last one. I think it was EAR. Okay, so they like this group. Okay, so I'm not so keen on bottom fishing, but if you have an interest, maybe watch it for base building. That's what I would do. All right, PSX, Credit Suisse likes it, raised the target to 95. That might be a good place with oil being strong. They also like this ASO. They did a secondary last week. They raised the target from 32 to 39. That was significant. Deutsche Bank likes IGT. Target goes from 28 to 32, stocks 20. This could be good. Broke out yesterday. Maybe if you could buy it on a little weakness. And people like letter U because of the earnings. I think that's it. Okay. What do I think the best call in the day? Probably this JCOM on the long side. Maybe CVS and maybe those 3 stocks, the 4 stocks that JP likes, but I wouldn't go in there hog wild. And on the short side, didn't really like any of these calls, to be honest. Kathy Woods, what's she doing? She's still going back to the same name. She believes in this Palantir. She's going to go down with the ship if it goes down. 2.7 million more shares she bought yesterday. She continues to buy the crap out of Path. They had a good day yesterday, right? It was up 9. IONS, she buys every day. Letter U, she bought it right into earnings. DraftKings, she continues to buy, and KTOS. Sell side Baidu surprised me. Workhorse, she bought it the other day. Now she's selling it. She continues to sell space. And I'm out of time. I could talk all day. All right, Spartan, it's all yours, my man.
All righty, thank you, South Beach. What's going on, guys? Morning. If you guys are new to the chat, I will post the Discord instructions later, but just in short, they are emailed to you, so just definitely go take a look at those. Pre-market tickers on watch. Let's take a look at what we got going on today, guys. A couple different things. Here's the pre-market action plan. You can pause it and read it if you're watching the YouTube stream. There you go. There you go. There you go. As well as here's the options stuff. Okay. Pre-market tickers on watch. Let's take a look at what we got going on today, guys. A couple different things. Tesla, TTD, UPST, LMND, Fubo, and ERI. Tesla gapping down slightly in sympathy with the market. Same with TTD, UPST, earnings beat, EPS, and revs. Q2 guidance for earnings and revs raised. 2021 guidance raised. Stocks gapping up. LMND gapping down. Earnings mixed. EPS miss. Rev beat. Q2 guidance in line. 2021 guidance in line positive. Fubo earnings mixed. EPS miss. Rev beat. Year-over-year growth 1,541%. Q2 raised, 2021 guidance raised, stocks gapping up. ERI gapping down, reported worse than expected Q1 EPS results. Also reported is unable to affirm previously provided guidance for fiscal 2021. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday. Let's take a look at the first two, Tesla, TTD. So Tesla, TTD, guys, let's take a look at what we got going on here. Tesla 606.31, pivot to the downside today. Levels unable to hold, room towards 592.31 to 585.44. Able to hold, look for pushback to 619.30 to 631.26 on the upside. Overall on Tesla, leaning bearish. Neutral, looking for a continuation lower out the gate this morning. Then we'll see what happens there. TTD, pivot, 502.39, levels able to hold. We got room towards 520 to 541.69, which is the gap fill area on the daily, which is where I think we're going today. In my opinion, 502.39, unable to hold, room towards 482.28 to 456 on the downside support. Overall on TTD, like I said, leaning bullish, neutral, looking for a hold, a pivot, continuation higher. We'll see what happens with that though. UPST, LMND. UPST 106.04 pivot, levels able to hold, room towards 116.86. That level breaks, we got room towards 123.79. Unable to hold, look for a pullback to 99.11 to 92.99 on the downside. Overall on UPST, going to be leaning on the bullish side today, looking for a continuation higher. Nice little flag break on the daily. EMA support reclaim. I think we got some room to push off those positive earnings. LMND 66.31 pivot, unable to hold. 62.01 will be tested to the 58.49. Able to hold, look for a push towards 72.84 to 77.19 on the upside. Overall on LMND, going to be leaning bearish, neutral, looking for a continuation lower today. Let's take a look at the next two, Fubo and ERI. Fubo 21.62 pivot, unable to hold, room towards 20.47 to 18.78. Able to hold, look for a push towards 22.57 to 23.91 on the upside. Overall on Fubo, leaning bullish, neutral, looking for a reclaim of the pivot, continuation grind higher. Last but not least, let's take a look at that ERI, which is pivot to the downside 17.08, unable to hold, room towards 1438 on the downside. Able to hold, look for a pushback to 1971 to 2242. But overall on airy, going to be leading on the bearish side of the gate, looking for a pull, kind of a blow off, and then I think we could look for some support or a little bit of a bounce after that. Let's take a look at the SPY and the FANG. SPY 212.62 pivot, unable to hold, 411.69 to 410.19 will be tested. Able to be reclaimed, room towards 413.56 to 414.15 on the upside. Overall on the SPY, and I should be typing this out. SPY, one sec. 412.62 pivot to the downside today. This level is unable to hold. Room into the 411.69. Support, that doesn't hold. That does not hold. 410.19, 409. Let's just see. I guess 29. Then 408.35 will be tested. Pivot holds. Room back into the 413.56 resistance. And then 414.15 level. Leaning bearish, neutral out the gate. So looking for a continuation pull lower. We'll see what happens when it tests the bottom of the range, which is on the daily, which is around the 410. Well, it's last day's low, 410.16 area, and or 410.06 level, I should say. And if that level can hold, we'll see if we can get a little bit of a bounce off of it. In regards to the SPY as well, guys, if you don't follow me on Twitter, I do post updates on it all day. Apple pivot to the downside today is 123.61. Levels able to hold. We got room back towards 124.97 to 127.02. Unable to hold. We look for a pullback on Apple into the 122.63 to 121.49 level on the downside. Overall on Apple, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today. Looking for continuation higher. Let's take a look at Amazon. Pivot to the downside is going to be the 3207.59 level. Unable to hold, 3172 to 3138 will be tested. Able to be reclaimed, 3249 to 3288. Leaning bearish, neutral on Amazon. Let's take a look at Netflix. Pivot to the downside today is going to be the 485.64. Unable to hold, 476.78 to 468.64 will be tested. Able to hold, 492.82 to 499.18 will be tested on the upside. Overall on Netflix, leaning bearish neutral, looking for continuation lower today. Let's take a look at Facebook. Pivot to the downside is going to be the 303.76. Unable to hold, 299.83 to 297.30 will be tested. Able to hold, look for a pushback to 307.09 on the upside, 310s. Overall on Facebook, leaning bearish, looking for continuation lower on that, unless that obviously downtrend bottom channel gets reclaimed. And then Google, last but not least, 22.48 pivot, unable to hold, 22.28 will be tested. Able to be reclaimed, 22.63 to 22.71 will be tested on the upside. Overall on Google, leaning bearish, neutral as well. Alrighty, so that's that. Let's take a quick look at the VIX. And I will also, I didn't have time before to go through the cues, but I will do it right now. So let's do that. So VIX, as we know, above the 50 MA on the daily, 2310 pivot, level holds towards 2426 to 2523 today. Unable to hold, 2186 to 2078 will be tested. Overall on VIX, going to be leaning on the bullish. Sorry, not bull. I'm not leaning any direction. We're watching it for continuation or direction on the SPY. And last but not least, let's take a look at the QQQ. So QQQs, guys, let's take a quick look at the daily here. Obviously, still extended to the downside. We're below inter-range support on the daily. And we do have some room lower today. If we can't hold supports, aka last day's low, I should say. So we'll call a pivot right now. The 319.60 level, unable to hold. We got room towards 316.55. Able to hold, we can get a push back towards the 321.05 to 324.20 level and possibly retest this bottom of the downtrend channel. But overall, right now, going to be leaning on the bearish side of QQQ, looking for continuation lower. So that's the Qs. Alrighty, guys. So that's the spots of FANG. Those are the individual names that we're looking at today. If you guys do have any questions, you can feel free to reach out, spartantrading.com. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next